Welcome to the Church Safety Guys broadcast with hosts James McGarvey, Paul Buckner, and Mike Scully. Together, they make up the Church Safety Guys. Their mission? To inspire, influence, and impact church safety teams. Join us for the next hour as we talk about all things church safety and security. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, join one of our church safety and security communities online, and share this broadcast with your church.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Sunday night broadcast of the Church Safety Guys. I am James, and as usual, I am joined by Paul and Mike. And welcome, guys.
Evening.
Thank you, sir.
So we've got a lot to get through and unpack tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great broadcast. Yeah, we're gonna start since unpack is Mike's word. Every time somebody says it in the broadcast now, I'm gonna make a little tick mark.
There you go. Somebody keep count. I'm curious as to how many times we actually use it.
No drinking games at home. You're Christians. Shame on you.
So if you're joining us on YouTube or at a later time, feel free to click like and subscribe on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And if you're listening to us via podcast, feel free to like and share with your team. And as always, feel free to visit churchsafetyguys.com for our resources, broadcast list, and perpetual information on what we're doing and what's going on. So other than the church security app and a new book coming out here in a couple of days, Mike, what else have we been working on this last week?
There's just steam like burning off of the screens, I think, on both of our computers because they've been in overdrive.
I think that's pretty fair.
More than normal. I get it. We're on book number 5, 6, and we got 6 or more in pipeline, and it's pretty crazy the amount of things, but I mean, glory to God in inspiration and so forth. But honestly, this is directly because of what people asked for.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome, and we've had an amazing response to it already. But for those of you that haven't seen that perpetual smoke coming off of our computers and out of our brains this week, we have actually set up October 2nd in Columbus, Ohio, a Church Safety Guys one-day Church Security Essentials Conference. I think I said that right.
You did. I mean, we only just penned that this week, so it's kind of new even to us.
Sure. So if you go to churchsafetyconference.com, you can get information on tickets, et cetera, et cetera. You can visit our website, Church Safety Guys, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says 2021 Conference. Click on that, and that will give you some information. But we have an amazing lineup of folks coming.
We crafted it directly on topics that, we looked at folks and what they're commenting on, what they're seeking, what is somewhat lacking out there in the vast majority of markets, and trying to say, okay, we don't want to only just talk about 17 sessions on security. There's got to be different topics that are part of this, and we want to boil it down. We chose essentials for a reason. We want to boil it down to some key things that are super important for you to take home. And then at that conference, we're going to unpack those topics in a very detailed way so that you have a full day of intense learning.
And the cool thing is that the idea behind it, Mike's absolutely right on. My thought process with it is when we did polls, we did surveys on who was interested in what content, and then we crafted it, we put it together. And the reality is it's mind, body, and soul. We have a fantastic national speaker on de-escalation that is also chomping at the bit to be like, hey, I'm coming down to Columbus. So for those of you that have been begging John Riley. He has graciously said that he would join us in Columbus, and then we have a topic heavy on mental health and how the church can be involved in that. And then we also have a good friend of mine, Aaron Hannon, coming in, and Hannah Wesley, actually, he's coming in and he's going to talk about first aid assessments and primary and secondary assessments. And so we're covering mind, body, and spirit. And here's the cool thing. I'll say this, and then we can jump to our guests. But this isn't just a security conference. We say security essentials, and that's 100% true. But the reality is, this could be for a hospitality team. This could be for ushers, for children's leaders, any individual that could benefit from de-escalation, which is honestly is anyone, and mental health especially is anyone. And we need you guys to come hang out with us. I'm just going to say it. Like, get a ticket and come. Not only are Mike and I are going to be there, we're trying to get Paul to come up based on his schedule. So let me just say that he's just as punny in person as he is on broadcast. So this is a fantastic event. We're actually in the workings with partnering with some fantastic sponsors for it. And so it's, to say in the last week, to say that where we've gotten and where stuff has come together, I would definitely say it's a God thing, that we've been able to move the way we have. But again, it's based on what you guys have asked for. And, we would love it if you came and hung out with us for the day and fellowshipped and learned with us and spent that time. So visit our website for more information on that. There is a free promo right now. If you pick up a ticket before, I think it's July 15th, you actually get one of our books free. And then there's different levels. There's also different levels of tickets. So we have general admission, and then we also have a VIP set up where you can come in and you get one of our books, and actually you get a chance to meet some of the speakers and talk to them personally before the conference starts. So and Mike will be there. Mike and I will be there all day signing books if you want. It's not worth anything, but
they're paying you to get their autograph. So just,
I won't even bring a pen just in case.
So really, really quickly, and we've got a great guest, and I'm not going to belabor this, but I wanted to endorse this because this is a meat and potatoes where the rubber meets the road conference. I've been busy and I'm prepping for the academy, and that's what's got my schedule messed up. But I'm hearing these little things going on, and I'm excited about where this is going, because this is something where you live and things that you'll actually encounter in day-to-day church safety. And I jokingly call some of the things that I've seen taught out there, I call them halo knitting, high altitude, low opening, parachuting towards the earth knitting. Some of them have no application whatsoever to church safety. And, we're here to love on people and rise to that threat, to deal with that threat if it comes in. But 99% of what we're going to deal with is going to be medical and little things that have nothing to do with an active shooter. So this is something that is real and practical, and where the rubber meets the road. So do your best not to miss it.
Well, and on that note too, what I just want to mention is that where we are in Ohio, the Ohio 71 corridor, 80% of the population of the United States is within a day's drive of us. So you know what? Seating is very limited. This isn't going to be a massive conference. We intentionally designed it minimally, so that for seating, from a seating standpoint, so that we can spend time with folks, and it's not a crazy, you get lost in this crowd type of conference. So with 80%, I can tell you 80% of the population of the United States in a day's drive to Columbus, you need get your ticket now is all I'm saying.
Yep.
Because I have a feeling that as we start to ramp up in advertising and letting people know that we're doing it, it's gonna move quick. Yeah, for sure.
And we're going to be looking at a room block as well, if we can, to get folks that are coming a distance that need to stay. So we'll be looking at a lot of those details. But without further ado, let's move towards our guest segment.
Sure,
Absolutely.
So let me bring our gentleman guest in. Good evening, sir. How are you doing tonight?
Gentlemen, how are you? Bunch of good-looking gentlemen. How you doing?
Well, he's not talking about Paul on this, is he?
Who do I send the check to there?
Sorry, let me wipe off my camera. Oh, no, it was smudge, sir.
So, Mr. Badu, thank you for joining us, sir. For folks that maybe haven't heard you with other symposiums or whatnot, if you could just run through your background and experience and what kind of brought you to where you are today.
For sure. First off, thanks for having me on, gentlemen. It was a great show, and what you're doing out here is really passing on fantastic information, all the information about your conference. So everybody listening, this is a great resource, and these guys are doing awesome work out there. So thanks for the invite. Yeah. Basically, James, it kind of started for the military with me. I joined the United States Marine Corps about going on probably 20 years now. It was a while back, and I did a lot of combat tours as an infantryman there. So I did 3 combat tours in Iraq. And after we got done with those were really crazy times. And people are listening going, whoa, this is a church show. What are we talking about, Iraq and war zone? Because we were a conventional military that got thrown in a very unconventional situation. We had a bad people that were hiding in the civilian population. We had to protect the civilians. So how do we do that? We had to get smart real quick. We paid a lot of these lessons that we didn't learn on in blood. And from that, the Marine Corps developed a program called the Combat Hunter Program. And that's where I luckily landed after all my combat tours to teach us to the Fleet Marine Corps. And why I'm on this show and why I'm talking to everybody here is because what we did at that program is to teach you to look at the environments you're in, the situations you're in, the people you're around, and establish baselines and proactively hunt for anomalies. And I'll unpack that term as we go along. So after I got out, after I did that for a lot of years, it's a very effective program, basically teaching people how to analyze behavior. After we got out, I started my own business because I saw a huge lack of that in our communities, our houses of worship, our churches, our schools, everywhere that you can think of. So what I do is if my organization comes in, and whether you're an individual or an organization, we aim to increase your situational awareness tenfold.
Awesome.
That's great.
Awesome, for sure. So that kind of pushed you into that. So now you go to different conferences, and what do you do with Emergency? What's your purpose with that?
Yeah, so with Emergence, it's the bridge between the two organizations. You have the individual and the organization. I had to figure out a way to basically copy and paste myself. I was running around teaching this stuff for a lot of years and realized, these numbers aren't enough. It's not getting taken care of quick enough. My whole my motto is to have like 1 million Americans trained by next year. So I created the Safe Instructor Program. And what I do is give you the ability to not only learn the skills, but either go to your church, your community, or a big corporation and teach them to the people there. So I'm kind of injecting me into the middle of these organizations where we can get this information out very quickly.
Awesome. That's awesome. So what we can jump straight into it. We haven't gotten any. Sometimes we'll get live questions and kind of filter through some of those. But one of the things that I know we've talked about often in the show is just awareness in general. And I mentioned this before to you before we went live, but one of the things that I really like about what you do is you put out videos to kind of get people's attention, and they're not it's unique, quick videos to kind of make you think, but they're awesome for training and for content and just saying, hey, let's break the complacency of, not being focused in what we're doing. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. what I try to do with those, James, you see social media oftentimes now, people are just looking for clicks and likes. They're doing the shock value. And if you look at mine, some of them are violent, some of them are completely innocuous, where nothing's happening. So I didn't want to be that person, just putting out shock value. What I do if I do put that violent stuff out there, what I'm doing is getting people to focus on where everyone is not focusing on. So we can all see the guy pull the gun. We all see the violence happen. Everyone's looking at it. That's why the video is being shared. But what about the extra information that you're not seeing? What about before the incident? What about 4 seconds, 10 seconds before that? Were there any mannerisms or indicators that could have keyed you off? Not necessarily that, oh yeah, that guy's about to pull out a gun, but you might walk into a crowd or a room and get the bad vibe. We've all got that bad gut feeling before, right? You know, the problem is we're much more civilized nowadays, and we want to tamp that feeling down. That's your limbic system. That's the fear centers in your brain that have got you alive this far, screaming at you like danger, Will Robinson. But because we live in such a polite society nowadays, we want to tamp that down. You're like, you know what? I've never in my life been shot before, so why on earth would I get shot now? And your brain will just go into denial mode. So just understanding that's happening in your brain with an unconditioned person is the first step on your journey of awareness.
Awesome. So what are some resources Paul mentioned, and we've talked about it before on this broadcast. I think we've all read the book Left of Bang. What are your thoughts on that?
So me and Pat Van Horn were actually at the program together, the author of the book. And we all got there. The program was really small at the time. It was actually at the time it was experimental. So experimental things don't often stick around forever. So you might get budget, you might not get budget. So they kind of threw this ragtag group of us in, and Pat Van Horn was one of the team leaders at the time, and he wrote Left to Bang, which is a fantastic resource that gets you a great chunk of information on the subject we're talking about. When you come into my section after that's kind of the more general information. My information is just a little bit more focused towards our communities, churches, and our organizations, as opposed to specifically military law enforcement.
Awesome. So what do you think I know you mentioned before about a third of the folks that you talk to are places of worship and churches. What are some of the things that you find yourself kind of coaching those folks on with the topic of awareness?
Yeah, let me tell you a story. This is kind of personal to me. Here in the West Coast, and again, I just don't know if you guys have ever heard of Calvary Chapel. They're huge over here on West Coast.
Absolutely.
I talk to East Coast people. Sometimes they've never heard of that, but Pastor Chuck, and I remember him telling a story about a person who came in, and it was kind of off hours, and he opened the door. He was very jovial, just like he always is, and goes, "Yeah, can I help you?" Obviously, this person looks disheveled. He's only there with him and his wife, and he goes, "I need you to come to my car, Pastor." So what does Pastor Chuck do? He trusts in the Lord and goes, "Roger that." He doesn't ask a question and goes over there with him. Gets in his car, and this guy pulls out a 45. And he points at him. Most people don't know this, and points it at him. And basically, I can't remember the question. He asked him a question about it, like, "Do you believe in God?" And he goes, "Of course I do." And the guy goes, click, and he pulls the trigger. And it went home. He pulled the firing pin out of it. The round was in load. He goes, "I just wanted to test your resolve. I just wanted to see if you were really backing up." And so I'm telling you guys, he was telling the story from a motivational faith, and everyone was eating it up, and that's great. But from my view, I come from a little bit more terrestrial view, and that was a horrible story. So understanding here why I tell that story is it's a very fine line we have to walk when we're dealing with church security. Why do people come to houses of worship? To be uplifted, to have their cup runneth over. It's not to walk into a jail cell with armed guards and whatnot. That's, we don't want that. So you have to make sure people are getting what they need from the services, but you are the last line of defense when it comes to protecting that flock.
Yeah, it's amazing to me what will happen because of normalcy bias, and that's what's so great about tonight's conversation is if we can get past that. And one of my roles in the service I attend is I sit where I can see a large amount of the sanctuary, and there's several of us that do so. And if somebody was to stand up and start moving in a certain way or moving within, if they are outside of the social norms for that event, and we've all seen footage of pastors being struck, people walking up on stage and attacking a pastor, and a lot of times people, instead of us getting ahead of the ball and going, okay, this guy's already on our radar, he's got his very own safety team member. We're watching the situation. We've talked to this person. We've realized they're high on drugs or they have an agenda, and it's amazing to me. I have friends that test security at houses of worship, and they tell me that frequently they are actually able to go all the way backstage and walk up to wherever the pastor is preparing to go up on stage and do the service, and walk right into their ready room, their green room. And if you wanted to take the life of a pastor, you're home, you're there. Absolutely. And so I think that's part of what is so powerful about getting ahead of it and seeing these things for what they are before they take place.
Absolutely, Paul. And a couple points. One, I wanted to jump on what you said about watching when someone stands up. So to your listeners, I probably just said a bunch of really cool things. You're like, wow, this guy is really interesting, but what does that mean? How does this translate? I want to apply a prison tactic that I want you all to apply in your churches, okay? A level 4 maximum security shoe program prison tactic. And everyone's going, oh my God, I don't want this at church. It's horrible. Mike's trying to delete me right now. He's like, how do you cancel? There's a tactic when, I'll bring this home. Trust me, you're not going to kick me off. The yard, prisoners go in yards, and the level 4 max facilities, those are the violent offenders, way bad, the gun towers and all that. There's a certain direction you walk on the yard. It's to the right. Everyone goes in the right circle. In these prison yards, especially here in California, it can be deadly force authorized if you turn and go a different direction. They automatically assume you're deviating to attack someone with a knife. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not telling everyone to put a gun tower in your church, but Paul, I wanted to jump on that. Movement's a big one. When the service is happening, the pastor's up there on the stage, where should everyone's attention be? Besides security, where should everyone in that room's attention be? Focused up, okay?
Sure.
So if I have an individual that deviates from my baseline, I'm not going to go over there and like Goldberg them, but of all these people in the room, I have movement, okay?
Yep.
What are they doing? Where are they going? It's a bathroom, it's a child, whatever. 99% of the time, it's going to be innocuous. But again, always ask yourself, where should people be paying attention right now? And if they're not, guess what, my friend? You have my full attention.
I'd jump on that with a timing situation as well. As timing is one of the ones I see as is there opportunity, and in a church setting, that can be when prayer is happening, or when the lights are down and worship and the strobe lights are up and everything else. It creates opportunity, and I think that's where you have to heighten that focus. I mean, I've visited a church that literally had folks that were wearing badges that said safety team, and then I saw them close their eyes in the middle of prayer. And I'm like, you know what? I love that they're praying to God. You know what? That's why we're there. But why we're there when you're serving on a safety team is your eyes are open when everyone else are closed. And so it just, that sort of thing is watch for those points of opportunity, which give them a chance to gain an advantage. And so if you're looking at that, you can have that heightened awareness when they have those windows of opportunity.
And Mike, can I just jump on what you're saying too from a church leadership perspective? What you're saying is, so let me wrap this from a leadership perspective. You know what? Never mind. I'll finish this thought later. I'll save it for later on. I don't want to unpack too much right now. So go ahead, guys. Sorry. Sorry. I'm jumping around a little bit.
I was just going to jump in and say, to one of your earlier points about training people and making a difference in how people's perception are and their level of understanding, like with the awareness videos. For years, Paul and I both had safety and security teams in our church before it was really even a thing. And what was interesting is I've spent years trying to train our staff, our church leadership to say, look, if something doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't. So I would rather you come to me and say, you know what, this really doesn't seem right to me. And what's interesting to me is now, I've been at this church for almost 15 years. And not too long ago, one of the pastors came to me and he said, you know what? He said, this individual is not acting normal. And I said, well, what's your level, what's your definition of normal? We're a church, right? Nothing's normal.
Yeah.
Right? So he said, well, and he started explaining some things to me. And one of the things that kind of caught my attention was that the guy was very, had a very dramatic personality, was changed his mind often, but also made comments like, nobody cares about me. I have, and what caught there, it was interesting because there were so many red flags when I stopped and said, look, okay, you've come to me with this piece and this piece. That's not a big deal. But when you put all of this together, it is a big deal because here we have an individual that doesn't have anything to lose. He's got a terminal sickness. He's mad at somebody at the church, and potentially. So it's interesting because, again, and I knew there was a level of seriousness that individual, that pastor, came to me because he doesn't normally do that. So for me, I'm like, wait a second, there's a lot of puzzles here and this is all going together. So, we need to take this serious. And I'll never forget, I had a lady years ago, we did an awareness class for our Sunday school teachers. And a dear sweet lady, she had been teaching Sunday school with kids for probably longer than I've been alive. And she's like, so do you mean to tell me when I come to church that I need to treat it like I'm aware when I go to the grocery store? And I said,
that's what we're saying.
Absolutely. I said, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, when you come into the building, when you come into church, I said, do not act like everything's fine and you're focused. Now, I know a lot of times with churches, that's kind of the point. So the point of the safety team is to kind of watch stuff while that's going on. But at the same time, it's funny to me how it takes so much time to change people's perspective into realizing and saying, look, you know what, when something doesn't seem right, chances are it really isn't.
Absolutely, James, and I'll go even farther than that. So I'd mentioned denial. Denial is a whole bucket we can take apart for a long time. But if that person, I talk about an unconditioned person, will go into denial. If you've never seen with it or dealt with it, you'll go into vapor lock and you will not do anything. You won't make a bad decision. You will not do anything. You'll just kind of go slack. In terms of someone bringing you an anomaly, James, if it's risen so far up there that they have come and verbalized it, odds are that was probably something that should have been addressed a while back, but they didn't have enough information. They just had to be fully convinced they weren't going to look stupid. When in reality, his stomach was telling him a long time ago. Yeah, his stomach. That would probably ask him, find him, James, and go, before you said something to me, how long were you thinking about that? Because most people think you're paranoid, you're crazy, but in reality, those limbic system responses, the fear responses, they're hardwired in us. There's a physiological, your brain wants to be aware. It's still, our brains are still stuck looking out for the animals. It doesn't realize, we're driving around in cars and whatnot. So give them the chance. Don't deny it. Don't pamp it down,
I always try to ask the phrase, what else, when somebody brings something to me, because they're not willing necessarily to think that anything else mattered. But when you force them to kind of say, well, what else did you notice? Yep. And you try to extract and say, tell me everything. Don't just tell me what you qualified in your own brain thinking you needed to tell me. I want to know more, because to James' point, the totality of that information combined may actually escalate that threat level, or that doesn't look right, to it definitely isn't right, and how are we now going to act?
Yep. If I could ding everybody in here and I could ding you with a wand and turn you into narcotics detectives, okay? And we're going to go serve a warrant on a house. I teach my instructors this. Before you make any of these observations, before we go any Jason Bourne, you have to look at the context and the relevance of your situation. Sure. So we're a narcotics detective. We're looking for lots of dope, nothing someone would flush, So we go to this house, we walk in, serve the warrant, we walk in the kitchen. You guys tell me, what are some things you'd normally see in the kitchen?
cooking stuff, little appliances, coffee pot, toaster.
Coffee pots, toasters, good, utensils and cups and blah, 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 blah. Cool, good. Are all those things in context of a kitchen?
Yep.
Yeah. No problems. As the narcotics detective, is it really relevant to my investigation? Not unless I get extra information. It's just stuff in the kitchen, right? Now let's take that same exact situation, but instead of walking in the kitchen, this time we walked in the garage. In the garage, there's a coffee maker and coffee pans and coffee filters and microwaves. Do we have a different situation now?
Yep.
Not the items. I mean, the items are an issue, but just the change of context, all of a sudden, now we got a problem. Now we have a meth lab as opposed to someone's, whole nice kitchen.
Yeah.
Nice.
For sure.
So I wanted to have a quick follow here because you guys are raising great points. Mike, you said something a minute ago about what else. And I think that's a gold nugget for tonight, guys, to take home, because we want to create a culture in our church where it's okay for our team to come to us with things, but it's okay for the greeters. It's okay for the children's ministry. It's okay for anybody to come to us. Mike, James, you've had some things happen with your church recently where things have been brought to your attention that you were like, that's information I could have used a while ago. and we all have those conversations. And, if like you were talking about that a minute ago about a baseball bat, if you're walking with a ball bag and you're walking into a ball field and you look over and a guy's carrying a baseball bat, that's no big deal. But if you're getting ready to have church and a guy's walking into the church carrying a baseball bat, that may be reason for concern. And
Paul, let me stop you.
Please.
Paul, great point. People won't make that connection. The unconditioned person, their brain will flip through a lot of it'll see person with a baseball bat, and their brain goes, whoa, where have I seen that before? I've seen that at baseball games. I take my kids to little leagues. It doesn't bring up violence. It doesn't bring up the picture of someone getting beat with a bat. So they go, well, just a guy with a bat, and it must be, and then you get hit in the head with a bat. So great point, Paul. Fantastic point. You have to be able to make that connection using context and relevance.
One of the things James was talking about, things that have happened at his church, I was reminded of a guy, and it's the sum and total of all the conversations. He told me one time at my last church I was at for 25 years, he said, I really don't think you guys need a safety team. I think you should shut it down. Ding. And it was a small red flag. And I'm like, well, fortunately, that's not a decision you get to make, brother. And he was
just a random.
He just random brought it up in conversation, and he said, "I think it's stupid that you have people outside." He said, "Nobody's going to do anything bad here." Okay, and that by itself means nothing. And then a few weeks later, I hear that he has some mental difficulties. He takes medication for some specific issues. Mm-hmm. Ding. And then we're talking another time, and he says, I think I figured out how many people you have on your security team. Wow. Ding. Yeah. And I looked at him. And he goes, well, I've ID'd all the guys that have earbuds in. And he said, I figured out, I think there's this many of you guys. And I kind of laughed, and I took a Jason Bourne phrase, basically. And I said, well, the nice thing about that is you might have ID'd a number of the guys that take care of things. I said, but what you haven't seen is my sleepers. And he goes, what? And he was unduly concerned. And I said, well, I have veterans and people who are law enforcement, and they're all carrying. I'm like, we have people that they're there, but maybe because of family concerns or just their lifestyle, they're not able to actively serve. So they're there for an emergency. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things that I began to watch him closely. And my thought was, and you said this earlier, you should be, sir, focused this way during the sermon, during the worship, whatever. Why are you counting my people? And later he asked the pastor permission to carry in the church and was told no. Right, thank you. And the eye flare, I love it. And so finally my pastor said, he's starting to concern me with some of the things he's saying. Would you take him to the range?
Paul, can I just pause you real quick, Paul, because I'm just taking notes. You're on step 3.5 of the terrorism planning cycle. So,
so
you might want to.
we need to take a quick sponsor break, but I want to come back to this because I'm curious about this this terror cycle now that Paul's eyes are like this big.
We're laughing, but I'm kind of serious.
Sure. Yeah. So anyhow, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after these messages from our sponsors.
With over 50 years of experience with religious and nonprofit organizations, Thomas Alexander Insurance and Associates understands that your congregation is different from a traditional business. We're here to fulfill your needs, coming to you while creating a personal plan for your budget and size. From your local community to around the globe, we are advocates for you. Thomas Alexander Insurance and Associates, your partner in service.
The worst has happened. Evil has invaded the sanctuary. Lives were ended, and the life of every surviving member of your church has changed forever. There will be funerals to attend. The grieving and the counseling will go on for years to come. You may even lose church members, especially if your pastor was killed during the attack. But what if I told you that all of this could have been prevented with the proper training? That your church could learn how to secure its campus and how to see the signs of an attack before it happens. At Shield Force International, we will teach you the skills you need to protect your church, to protect your children, to mitigate and even eliminate would-be threats to your church body, all before it happens. We can no longer pretend that evil doesn't exist, or that churches aren't targets. Attacks against churches and pastors are on the rise. Call or visit us online for a free consultation.
Welcome to the Church Safety Guys broadcast.
Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization dedicated to help inspire, influence, and impact church safety and security teams. We are about all things church safety and security, which starts with a ministry mindset and a servant's heart. We're protectors, guardians, ambassadors, and shepherds. We help church and place of worship safety and security teams all over the United States through our broadcasts, online communities, conferences, trainings, resources, and products. Help us reach more churches in impactful ways by considering becoming a monthly ministry partner. $2, $5, $20 a month will help us continue to provide these resources.
All right. Good evening, and thanks for hanging out with us. You're listening to the Church Safety Guys Sunday night broadcast, and we are all back speaking with guest Yusuf Badu. And I want to go back to Paul. You wanted to wrap up what you were saying, and then I know we want to jump to one of Mike's topics. So go for it.
Man. So I'm going to cliff note. Yeah, I'm going to cliff note this story, and then I want you to talk about this because he very firmly got on my radar. I started checking his vehicle every service. I went ahead and I was watching his body language, what have you. Made sure my entire team, whether they were, actively seen or sleepers, especially my sleepers, were watching him. And then I did decide to take him to the range, and the gentleman had no idea what he was doing with a handgun, claimed to have spent time in the Navy. And my pastor suggested that I outshoot him. He peppered a target with 15 rounds of 9mm at 21 feet. It looked like he'd been shot with a shotgun. And then he proudly announced to me that this is as good as it gets. Why practice when you can shoot this well? And I calmly drew and put 3 rounds of HST in the little target in the upper corner of the target. And he looks at me and he's like, "Holy cow, how often do you shoot?" And I called him by his first name, and I said, "Well, brother, this is my pool table. This is what I do for fun. A little less with ammo prices right now, but I still shoot." And we watched him very, very closely. I made sure that all of my law enforcement, whether they attended with us or they came by for coffee and a conversation, they knew this gentleman's name and they knew what he looked like. And we ministered to him. Well, the end of the story is he turned to me a few weeks later and he said, "Paul, I don't know why I would ever need to carry a gun in this church." He said, "It's obvious you and your guys have it under wraps." But he was always like, I was always watching him very closely from that point forward.
Is he still there?
No, the pastor of that church passed away, and he moved back to another denomination and in a completely different church.
Yeah. So again, within the context of church security, Paul, understanding my background, it was kind of hardcore. So it's hard. It's not hard, but we just have to transition. So I see a security threat. So you have to balance that with ministering to people. That's the reason the church is there. So, but some things to talk about. We mentioned some things on the individual level, being unconditioned, going into denial, looking for prevent indicators. But on the organizational level, I spent a lot of time teaching security staff and about the planning cycle of some type of violent or criminal or terrorist type act. And I'm not going to go over everything, but basically it's broad target selection, specific target selection. And then I teach a lot on the pre-attack surveillance and planning. That's the one I teach a lot of people out because we can't really see a lot of the other indicators involved with the planning cycle. But what do they have to do? They have to do some type of surveillance, criminal, terrorist, violent, whatever it is. They have to watch us. So that's the easiest, most efficient place for us to catch them doing their surveillance, right? So just taking notes on your guy, he's, what did I say, inquiring about the security staff, counting the security staff. I'll tell you right there, Paul, if that was Iraq and I was a Marine, that guy is going in the back of my truck and we're going to go have a talk, counting. So the counting that and access to a weapon system, mental health issues. So all these, these patterns start cropping up. As an organization, I would go in there and teach their individuals what these planning stages look like. So if I want to teach you to be individually left to bang and situationally aware, organizationally, we can see these things happen much farther away from the actual violence. Individuals, I can teach you to look for these prevent indicators. Maybe I can buy you 10, 20, 30 seconds, a minute before the gun shoots, Organizationally, we can see a situation like this a month, weeks, a year in advance.
That's great. Yeah, and Yosef, I'd love to continue down that vein of individual versus organization and kind of talk through at the individual level. Certainly with folks on a church safety team, they got to first know their strengths. They got to know kind of what are they coming to the table with, what are their weaknesses, what's their baseline, to your point, and really walk through. We have a wide range of listeners, from those that are in leadership to those that are just members of the team. So let's unpack a little bit further the individual versus organizational level awareness.
For sure, Mike, and you're going to love it because they all tie in kind of to each other in a roundabout way. So during my deployments in Marine Corps, and I keep going back to the Marine Corps, I mean, people make fun of us for being dumb, but we're pretty efficient. We don't have a lot of resources, so we got a lot of stuff done. And General Mattis at the time came up with another program called Every Marine a Collector. EMAC. And everyone, that was kind of the catchphrase, everyone's a collector. And what that means is when you're out there on the battlefield, everyone's a collector. You're always collecting information, always collecting, and different types of information. You might not even know what it is exactly, but that innocuous piece of information might lead to something more. When the special forces, why they're so successful in their missions, because they're internally driven intelligence. Me, I was a dumb grunt. We get told from higher ups, hey, go kick a door in over here. Okay, sure. We do that. There's nothing there. We don't know. They derive their own intelligence. So individually, an organization can train individuals in these specific behaviors. What does pacifying behavior look like? What does someone look like when they're about to become violent physically? You can spot this stuff. Yeah. So now every one of our people in the organization is a collector. Okay, they might not be a savvy collector, but we don't really care at this point, because the next iteration, this church security team, they're the next echelon. They're the ones trained in the specific behaviors. They're the one trained in response. So I don't necessarily need my parishioners to understand the science of everything. I just need them to get to a point, James, where you have that individual tap you on the shoulder and go, you know what? I don't know what's going on, but I feel something's hinky, something's shady.
Sure.
Can you look into this? And now that second echelon, who's been trained by the organization, has the resources. Okay, I know what I'm looking for. They, like you said, James, they were kind of weirded out by these couple things, but you're right. Like, I want to focus on that. That's a problem. So we can add more resources to it. We know who to call. Okay, once you look at a situation, okay, hey guys, I can handle this. All right, not a big deal. Or, oh my God, we need to get 911 here right now. This is not something any of us can handle. So that's where the marrying comes up, by training people individually to understand these specific indicators of fear or threat. We can feed better intelligence to our organization and make faster decisions in time of violence or threat.
Nice.
That's great.
You know, I wanted to make a quick comment on that, because when you read, it's the twin tragedies at something Air Force Base. The gentleman that ultimately shot the place up, there were some mental health issues. And have you read the book?
You talking about what just happened last year? Pearl Harbor?
It was several years ago. Anyway, the gentleman ended up getting taken out by an Air Force police officer, but I'll find the name of the book so that people can find it. But what he
thinking about Fort Hood, the Fort Hood shooter?
And
no, never mind.
At Air Force, there we go. I'll get the name of it. But anyway, it's a phenomenal book and it'll break your heart. It's called Warnings Unheeded: Twin Tragedies at Fairchild Air Force Base. And the first part of the book is about this guy.
Yeah, I've been up there.
Yeah, okay. Well, he walked through and he had a box in his hands, and it was the length and shape of a rifle. And he was carrying it at waist level. And he was methodically walking through and stopping. And he was almost at the end of planning that cycle of that attack. And people kept ignoring the threats. And he put a drum magazine, as I recall, on an SKS and walked through and gunned down quite a few people. And this was after he had been dismissed from the Air Force. He'd been kicked out. He was gone. And there had been 15 times that he could have been stopped before this, that things could have been changed beforehand. And this is what keeps us left of bang. To bring that back around to what you do is we don't want a Columbine. We don't want a Sutherland Springs. And we want to get ahead of all of these situations to avoid them. And we don't want just a 10-second, 60-second heads up. If we can catch somebody planning something ahead of time and maybe figure it out, you know, I tell my guys, if I've got a DLR that I'm talking to and you saw the vehicle they got out of, please go check their car. Yeah. I have guys that go out there. Is there a picture of our pastor with his eyeballs poked out? Is there a map with the church circled? You know, are there shotgun shells laying in the front seat? You know, is there body armor laying there? Now, if you go look at my vehicle, I'm a chaplain. I have a bulletproof vest in my vehicle that says chaplain on a giant, you know, I'm waiting for somebody to come in and go, but that's mine, we're good. But if somebody wants to go play the home game, they want to read this and then come back and start studying what Yusuf is teaching us, this is why. It's these moments like this where that event that happened at that Air Force base was entirely preventable. Mm-hmm. And that's why we have to stay left to bang.
Absolutely. I could sit here and go through every one of these case studies that we do, and I do a lot of them, the Fort Hood shooting, and it's so sad, but time and time again, Paul, time and time again. I can tell you, I could curl your toes. I could tell you one kid in Wisconsin walked into a McDonald's. He worked at a McDonald's and shot it up with an SKS, actually. He was 15, 16 years old. His family had the SKS. He walks by his mom. It was 8:30 in the morning on like a Tuesday with an SKS over his shoulder. And he's whispering, "This is the only way. This is the only way." And his mom's like, "Huh, that's weird. He must be going hunting," you know? So going back to denial. Denial is a factor here, and especially if it's a loved one. Who's going to believe a loved one's going to be an active shooter? Very rarely you hear about them where a parent will call and say, "I think my kid's going to be an active shooter." And they'll take the kid, and sure enough, he was planning something. Very rarely, because that's not the normal reaction. The normal reaction is to put that in a box, in a shoebox, and tie a bow on it and bury that thing deep, because no one wants to believe that. So that's already working against us. But again, if you're not conditioned, if you've never seen this stuff before, you want to talk about Stephen Kaczmirzak, who walked into a college class in DeKalb, Illinois, and he started shooting people with a shotgun. And the doors are wide open. Everyone's just watching him shoot people. He gets done with his rounds and he kills himself. And that's when everybody gets up, runs screaming out of there. And, they asked the survivors after the fact. They said, "Hey, what was going through your head?" And a lot of them said, "I thought it was a test. I thought it was a prank." Okay. That's wild. That doesn't make sense to us sitting here right now, but you think those kids woke up that day and were like, "Oh, better stretch it out. I better, not see this active shooter." They weren't conditioned. They never had a chance, coming out the gate. There's a reason I don't teach my classes in Israel. The Israelis don't hire me. Okay. Why? Because they grow up with this stuff. 2, 3, 4 years old, they're seeing this stuff. Another thing I wanted to talk about on the show too, while I'm ranting, is the models are different. Paul and Mike and James, the Christian churches versus different churches. Because I'll tell you to come to California, and we have the Jewish Federation. Jewish federations everywhere, but in the Jewish Federation, they're no joke, man. They have a command center. They call it the Rock. They're monitoring different threat incidents all over the area. Now, am I saying, is that going to apply to Columbus, Ohio, and your community? No, but I'm just saying there's a lot of organizational things you can bring to bear by training your people, by everyone being a collector, and then having organizational understanding of these violent situations.
I want to make a quick comment, and then I'm sorry, James, I walked on you. I want to make a quick comment, and then I'll throw it back, because this is why. So I'm a civilian police chaplain, for those that don't know, and this is why I'm so big on building relationships with law enforcement, because I've had officers go, "Paul, come here," and they point through me, and that guy sitting over there, yeah, he's a guest. It's his third Sunday. Okay, he's facing assault charges because a guy said something he didn't like and he maced him. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good information to have.
Good to know.
And that's good to know. And this guy goes off.
Community policing. That's great.
Yeah. And so when you can build relationships, and that's not always viable in every area, but when you can build relationships with law enforcement, I've gotten calls saying, "Hey, you guys should lock down. We have an armed person in your area, and we're not announcing it to the public, but you need to go into lockdown." Or that guy's a registered sex offender, or this person's been a repeated problem. If you can build those relationships, or I've been blessed to get to the point, and James, you have this, Mike, you're working on this if you don't have it already, but I literally have the cell phone numbers of officers that are actively on but not attending my church. I can call and say, "Hey, Bill, need a favor. I've got a DLR. I'm concerned that they might be casing us for something. Would you mind stopping by for a cup of coffee? I'd like to visibly place your cruiser. I'd like to have a visible conversation with you." "Yeah, brother, let me clear this call. I'll be by in 10. Those relationships are huge, and if you can have that authority figure present.
Yep. And here's a cup of coffee with a barbecue plate too.
For sure. I wanted to jump back to a topic that's near and dear to my heart in all of this. Before the broadcast, Yusuf, you had mentioned how to tell if the person is right for your safety or security team. Oh, yeah. And I'm chomping at the bit for that, because I know there's a lot of folks out there that are like, what would be the best thing to look for instead of being voluntold. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So it's not super, high level. It's just some things to think about. One thing is either people can interview, if this is kind of from a recruiting perspective. So, if people can interview good and people can interview bad. So you could have a great interviewer, and then when it comes to rubber meets the road, not so much. Not someone you don't want to fall back on a violent situation or a security situation. If we're filling out TPS reports, not a big deal. But if we let one slip through there, not a big thing. All right. So as far as backgrounds, okay, everyone wants to add, everyone wants to help, especially in a church setting. Everyone wants to give as much as they can. Great. It's not Zig Ziglar, but what's his name? It's about getting the right people on the bus, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously look for your military veterans and your law enforcement. Law enforcement being number one. Law enforcement, any prior retired or spent a few years being a police officer, they're always my number one call. Why? Even if they don't even realize it, like I'm the behavior situation awareness guy, cops will do it better than me 10 times out of 10. They're way better at this stuff than I'll ever physically be because they've grown up. They've come up over years seeing multiple indicators. So think of it like a hand-to-hand drug deal, where someone's selling drugs for cash, Let's say hypothetically there's 10 steps in that thing. A rookie cop might have to see that 10 steps every time till he goes, yeah, okay, I think it's one. Now a veteran cop who's seen 10 steps every time for 20 years, does he need to see steps, 1 through 10? No. They might not only need 3, 7, and 10. And they go, that's a drug deal, good enough for me. So rely on that. I'm just going to make some kind of broad generalizations there, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that in the church security world, most of it's going to be male dominated. And that's just the nature of the beast. There's nothing wrong with that. Us males always want to get out there and take care of people. It's a natural inclination. If you don't have ladies on your team, you're missing out on a whole huge component of information. I make this joke a lot. I say my wife's a better profiler than I'll ever be. I make this joke and everyone, has a laugh, but much truth is said in jest because women are much more attuned to nonverbals happening around them. Guys, we're a little bumbly. Yeah, we throw our chest out, we're big, but think about women and how they grow up. Do women get the talk as young girls? Hey, you got to be head on a swivel. There's men that are predators out there. What age are they getting that talk? Very young. Okay. They're much more attuned to this. Have you ever had, your sister have an eye conversation with your mom, and you're like, what's happening? Guys were lost. So women, not so much. They pick up on a lot of different indicators, so much so that, I'm not saying anything classified, but Delta Force, we've all heard of them. Delta Force, those ninjas up there, they have a whole platoon of women that roll with them internationally, okay? Because there's a lot of places ladies can go that guys can't. And, so there's a whole component there if you're missing, if you don't have ladies on the team, because they see things us guys don't. And the third thing is organizationally, this is the best thing you can do. You can really, I'll tell you the trick here in a second. The best thing you can do with all this whiz-bang stuff I'm telling you, whatever church security training you're doing, it needs to be consistent. It needs to be always at the top of the mind, all right? Who wants to guess the safest airline in the world? Go ahead, guys.
It's Israeli. Airline. Guarantee it's Israeli.
Yeah, right on, Paul. Nailed it. El Al Airlines, safest airline. They haven't had a terrorist attack since 1969 or something, okay? Yeah. Why is that? Because they're analyzing everyone who walks in there. They profile it, even if they don't tell you. Sure. They have a different constitution. But another component is they red cell each other. They probe each other all the time. They have someone bring in a gun. They have someone try to get past security. They all the time. How many times a day is it required? Do you think they have to do that?
Five or six.
Twice a day. Twice a day, Paul.
Okay.
Two incidents every 24 hours. They're probed. If you fail 3 incidents, guess what? You're fired. So, Do you think that's realistic? You think that's real? Do you think that keeps people sharp?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They haven't had any issues for the last
exactly. Something seems to work. Something's in the water. And Paul and James, I'll give you a quick one. Again, you guys had asked me from a recruiting perspective. So I talked about law enforcement. I talked about that. We want people who are observers. We want baseline. I can go to the gym and get the big guy. I want the eyeball, So we have that. But here's a quick kind of trick. One of the behaviors I talk about on the individual level is scanning a crowd look. When you're a crowd of people, 99% of the population are not paying attention to their aware. They're not aware. They're in their phone. They're doing whatever. Okay. So you need to walk around looking for people exhibiting situational awareness. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I see someone else exhibiting that, it's not like, I run over there and Goldberg them. It's just like, okay, it's like player 2 has entered the field. If I have to pay attention to anyone in this entire room, here's my person right here, because they're showing me situational awareness. Most people don't have that. Either you're trained, conditioned, good guy, bad guy, whatever it is. Yeah. It's the bad and the good that walk around like that.
I was going to say there's only 2 sets of people that are looking at eyes and hands and belts and they're situationally aware. They're either criminals or the good guys.
Exactly. Hey, do you guys, when you walk into a Walmart and you look up, do you guys look at cameras? Anybody?
Yep.
Yep. Why? You're not criminals. Are you guys criminals? Why are you worried about where the camera is?
I'm not worried about it. I just like to know what it's actually covering and if it's working or not. That's my background, though.
It's more like you're aware. You don't like being watched. We're an aware person. So the good and the bad, just like we will both exhibit that. So if you're ever scanning, you should pay attention to that. So in a crowd environment, as opposed to maybe interviewing someone, I don't know. This is kind of fun messing with using that concept. Who do I want on your team? The most aware person there. Okay. This might sound crazy. So I said law enforcement, you might actually have someone from a prison background. People have done their time and they're coming back in society. You might have someone that is hyper aware. They're very aware. Okay. But try this. You might make a noise. You might have that whole, everyone's watching. They're paying attention to the pastor. Maybe make a loud noise or something along that nature to get people's attention and see who looks. See who checks their 6, okay? Again, 99% of the population is not walking around aware of what's behind them. So if I got a whole group of people and I do a big clap and I got 4 people turn around and look at me, those are the 4 people I want to talk to. Again, I'm not just going to hire them like, oh, you're hired. Like Bob Barker, Price is Right, come on down. You got to do a little bit more diligence than that. But that shows me a natural inclination for situational awareness, and I like that.
Boom.
Sure. Quick comment on awareness. I want to kind of take this broader for a second with church security teams, in that as part of your team, you need to be aware of what's going on with staff. And one of those things that you need to be aware of is understanding if there's a person who has perhaps been attempted, perhaps in Paul's case, that gentleman that wanted to carry a gun. Well, when those messages have to be delivered to somebody of, no, you can't carry the gun, or no, you're not getting the job, or I'm sorry, you're tone deaf, you can't be on the worship team. All of those messages can land with a thud and be a trigger point for somebody. And I don't think the pastors are necessarily always thinking about it from the possibility that, hey, they're going to love on the person and still deliver the hard news, but they're not thinking about what that hard news could domino into. And I think that's something that we as a safety team need to be aware of and build the relationship with our pastors well enough so that they feel like they can trust you to bring you inside that information, so that you can then be aware and say, okay, I'm going to go have this conversation over here. I don't need you to be my shadow, but I want you to be aware that I'm having the conversation and be within the realm of access. So I think that's an important piece as well. But lastly, I think just to kind of close all the pieces together is you got to have that self-awareness to know what you're capable of. You got to have that environmental awareness we've talked about, of understanding what's normal, what's not normal. When you combine all of that with behavior in the wrong context, Joseph, you spoke to that tonight. All of those things help us see something that doesn't belong. That's our standard. That's our doesn't look right. That's what we're telling people to bring to us and give us more information on. So that deviation, that abnormal behavior, that's what we're actually asking for there. So again, practice it. If you're unfamiliar, if you just feel like, you know what, that awareness is not something, go people watch. Just start people watching. You'll get some good practice there. Or frankly, go mom watch.
I was going to comment real quick, and then I'll throw it to Paul, because I know that he wants to say something, and we are over in time. But it's a great conversation. So one of the things that I do almost regularly every service is I will walk through. We do 2 Sunday services, And I will walk through in between services and watch at the front of the church as people come in. And I'll just stand there and people watch. And I'll watch, what people are doing if they see me standing there, and I'm looking for reactions and anomalies. But it's interesting to me because in the length of time that I have, I always try and walk down. Our sanctuary is pretty large, but I'll always try and walk down one aisle and then do like 2 main circles. And it's always interesting to me because, and I've coached several other churches on this as well, but it's always interesting to me because when I look at it, you would think that in a larger congregation, it would be hard to spot the anomaly or hard to think, oh, well, this doesn't look right. But the reality is, if everybody's getting ready for the service and everyone's sitting there and they're messing with their kids or they're trying to get their kids to settle down or whatnot, the reality is it is very, very easy to spot somebody that's not doing what the norm is, or body language, someone sitting there with their arms crossed, hunched up, and a lot of times what I will do at that point is I'll just walk over to them and I'll stick my hand out and say, hey, I'm James, just wanted to introduce you. I haven't seen you before. Welcome to the church. And it's interesting seeing people's reaction with that, because sometimes, their reaction is, oh, and it's like they're in their zone and they come out of it. And sometimes they don't. And when they don't come out of that zone is kind of when, we look at it and make a mental note of it. But it's not challenging. Yeah, it's not challenging to do it. It just takes time and practice of getting used to and getting yourself acclimated to, to be aware and to know what you're looking for and what you're looking at, like actually see what you're looking at versus just glaze it over with complacency. But I'll throw it over to Paul. I know you wanted to wrap it up with some stuff.
There's so much good stuff here. So I would love to have you back on. I could see us having this conversation, 2 or 3 more times down the line. And where I was going with this really quick was you talk a lot about nature. I've watched some of your material and back and forth, and you talk about nature and things that happen in nature. And I tell this story. I do some photography. I stopped next to a pasture. I live in a rural area. There was a calf up against the fence. Kids and little animals do stupid things. The calf is right where it could be snatched by a predator, and kids and little animals do stupid things. And Mama's standing a few feet away. I talk to the calf. The calf looks at me. He's curious. I start snapping pictures. Mama snorts and comes trotting over, and she blows at me through the fence like, I will stomp you.
Yeah.
And she starts taking the baby and pushing the baby back. And then she literally bellows, and the bull comes running up, does a slide stop, and he blows at the fence and looks at me. And I said, all right, bully. I said, I get you. I said, you're doing your job. That's cool. He can't get through the fence, not without.
I have to go right now. I mean, because I have a thing, but if I.
Yeah. And so I was talking to them, and I was like, good job, Mom. Good job, Dad. And the bull's kind of eyeballing me like, what are you? You're a booger. And I've seen the coyotes, literally, I have had cattle for years, and I've seen the coyotes slinking around the outside, and Mom walks over and gets between the baby and, and the moms are starting to line up, and they're starting to holler at the bull, and the bull's getting his blood up, and the coyotes are like, yeah, it's time to slide down the road. We need to pick an easier target. Mm-hmm. And when we can be, and this is everything that you're talking about, right? But when we can be that level of situationally aware, we had a guy one Sunday that came in, and every time he saw one of our security team members without an earbud or with an earbud, and anytime he saw an officer, he was getting really antsy. And like James said, he's looking back, he's looking around, he's pinging all of us. And I'm like, okay, you're here for something. You're here to be a thief. You got a guilty conscience. Well, the guy goes upstairs and sits on our balcony. And I'm like, nope. And so I turned to the officer on watch, and I said, the guy's wearing his outfit is so skin tight. His T-shirt and his skinny jeans are so skin tight. He does not even have a pocket pistol on him. I guarantee it. But I'm concerned that this guy's got warrants, or this guy's casing us for something. Is he planning a shooting? Is he planning on stealing? Is he planning on coming back later and robbing the place? And so I accidentally, and James, you reminded me of this story when you said you do walkthroughs. I accidentally had a half dozen of my people cycle through within a matter of minutes, and including the officer that's paid to stand at the door. And the guy never came back. Now, nobody went up to him and was mean. Everybody smiled and waved at him. We were plenty friendly, but the coyote that was sneaking along the outside of the herd went, "Oh, this is not a soft target. I'm going to get stomped," and left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny, Paul, because this actually ties exactly in with James and with what he was saying is that, being a hard target. What does that mean? I've said a lot of cool stuff to your listeners who are like, oh man, I want to know this stuff. I want to learn it. I want to be situationally aware. I want you to be situationally aware. Everyone listening, you all sitting here, I want you to be 110% situationally aware. If you can't do that, I'd rather you fake it till you make it, because that works just the same. When you were talking about your contact with people, James, every time you go into Walmart, what do you get? You walk into Walmart, what happens? You get greeted. Someone goes, "Hey, how you doing?" They got the blue vest. They got a big smile. Okay. What are they doing? You think they're just giving away millions and millions of dollars to pay for those people? What's that person doing? They're there to say hi. What are they really saying to you guys when you walk in the door?
We see you.
I'm looking right at you. And there's research behind it, guys. There's like a 40% reduction in crime when you have someone go, "I see you, big smile, everything's jovial, but I'm looking right at you." So you're already implementing some good stuff there. And like you said, Paul, be situationally aware. And if you can't do it, fake it. Cycling your guys through, that's a good thing. A lot of the times criminal violence, terrorism, a lot of time it's predatory, and they act like coyotes. They don't honestly act like wolves. A wolf will go after a big animal, but a coyote is kind of I could probably win this fight, or get you with a sucker punch. So sometimes just puffing your chest out and looking mean, that's sometimes all you need.
For sure. Well, I think with that, I know we're over a bit, so I appreciate your patience and hanging with us. So great conversation. So if somebody, we've been playing it along the bottom, but if somebody wants to get a hold of you for more information, what are your social media links, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so best thing to do is that link you guys are showing, yusufbadu.com. That'll get them into the registration. That'll give them their social media. But if you want to find me on Instagram, it's yusufbadu_emergence. I'm the only Yusuf out there. Come on, guys. You just Google Yusuf Marine. There can't be that many of us out there.
For sure. Well, thank you so much again for joining us, and we always appreciate folks coming on and just chatting with us. And I know, judging from our listeners, they loved it too. So we'll have this up on YouTube, this conversation, probably tomorrow. Awesome. And then we'll also have it up on our podcast software as well. So let me go ahead and I will pull you out, and then we'll wrap up everything here real quick. So yeah, that was great, and for sure, great content. I know a lot of folks are definitely appreciative of that. So, as far as announcements or wrapping the show up, I know we went a little bit long tonight, but great stuff. So hopefully you guys benefit from it. Next week we are actually off for 4th of July, so we're taking that off. And then the following Sunday night, we are actually bringing back a long-time guest in the show, Paul's favorite. He's like, "Who is it again?" So we'll actually be bringing, if everything works out well, we'll be bringing Jason Hebner back on with us. And Jason's a great guy, and I grew up with him and his family, and he's got a fantastic family, but he is with Wisdom and Knowledge, and he has, over the last year, because we had him on almost a year ago, believe it or not, his topic was actually strengthening your team by personality. So understanding an individual's personality traits to put on your team, and how to engage with them, and how to build a better team. And so I reached out to him again, and I said, his broadcast last year was one of the most listened to broadcasts that we had all year all year long. So
Nice.
I asked him, I kind of twisted his arm and I said, "Hey, can you come back on?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. I love hanging with you guys." So he will be back. Hopefully he'll be back on the 11th with us. And it will be, I'm sure it'll be a great conversation, because it usually is. But other than that, anything you guys want to add?
Great, lot going. Sign up for the conference if you're anywhere within that day's drive. I think it's certainly valuable. You get the free book, you get other opportunities there, and
Sure.
we really, like I said, tried to focus. The reason it's called Essentials is that we wanted to focus is that the essentials that you really need for a ministry. You need to focus on leadership. You need to focus on de-escalation and people, and how you deal with mental health, that first aid component, that protection. It's really all about those foundational elements that you need to kind of get started. We can talk about tactical training and all sorts of response training and all sorts of other things, and there's plenty of options for that. We have different folks on the show that do that. Again, we wanted to give a one-day option, dive straight into the meat of the matter, some key things that are important that every person in your team has, and starts here as a good foundation. Get those essentials out of the way and then build on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So October 2nd, Columbus, Ohio. You can visit churchsafetyconference.com or visit our website, churchsafetyguys.com, and click on the link. There's a link in the upper right-hand page. Very, very limited seating. We really are trying to make it more of a personal, interactive conference where we get the opportunity to meet some of you guys. And with Columbus being subject to 80% of the United States population in a day's drive, it's an awesome opportunity. We didn't, honestly, when Mike and Paul and I started talking about it, we didn't see another conference coming out of COVID this year in the Midwest. So that's kind of why, that's another reason why we said, you know what, I think we can pull together. And certainly we're going to have door prizes. We're going to have great speakers. John Riley with General Response has agreed to come down and do the de-escalation portion for us, which is awesome. I think John's almost as excited as we are about it. But it'll be a fun day for sure, and certainly, the value, we tried to price it at a point where it's for 8 hours of for 8 hours of conference, you're not going to find a better value for the folks that have generously given their time to to come down and support us and support getting you solid training. So check it out. If we can be of any help with helping you find the link or whatnot, please feel free to reach out to us. And that's what we're here for. So Paul, you want to go ahead and close us out this evening?
I will. It'll be an honor. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, I thank you for tonight. I thank you for our guest, for Yusuf coming on, Lord God. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, Lord God. And I think of the fact that we're to be as shrewd as vipers, but as innocent as doves. And ministry is tough because the hurting and the loss, the DLRs, that's exactly our target market. That's who we're after, Lord God, is the people that need you. And so it's tough, but we've got to do it in a way that your love is expressed, but the ministry is protected. And I thank you for moments like these, for interviews with people who are subject matter experts in their area, Lord God. And I thank you for that. And I ask that this podcast, this broadcast would reach the right ears, and that it would bless them. We just lift up tonight to you in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So anything else you guys want to add real quick?
No, it's great. This is a great episode. I would put this on the short list of my favorite. So
awesome. So yeah, do us a favor, visit us at YouTube, at our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Feel free to visit us on Facebook and like and subscribe for updates as we send them out. But if we can be of any help to you guys in your ministry, please feel free to reach out to us. So until next time, have a safe 4th of July. We'll see you on July 11th. So have a great night, guys. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for joining the Church Safety Guys broadcast. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback. Looking for ways you can help us reach more churches? Share our broadcast with your teams. Consider becoming a monthly ministry partner. Like and share our page and join the discussion in our Facebook groups. Visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com for other great resources. Remember to keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and semper disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.